I'm Lori Rader-Day, author of Under a Dark Sky. This is Author's Voice.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Author's Voice, where we are connecting authors to the world. This is Solved, and I am your host, Libby Hellman. And today we're going to be talking to Lori Rader-Day, whose fourth book, Under a Dark Sky, came out at the end of the summer and is doing phenomenally well, as all of her other books have. So welcome, Lori.
Thanks for having me.
If you're watching this on Facebook Live or on our website, please use the comments to submit a question. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll make sure that Lori gets the question and she can answer it if she so chooses. And tell us your first name and where you're from, and we'd like to make it interactive, so do call in, or write in, I should say. Most importantly, we'd like to invite you to order a paperback. If you look behind us, you can see we have a lot of Lori's books Under a Dark Sky, and you can get a signed copy from us. All you have to do is click over to authorsvoice.net, which you can do easily from Facebook, or if you're already on the website, you know what to do. It's very easy to order a book, and we'll get it right out to you after the show. So, welcome, Lori.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you here. I'd like to do a little bit of a bio ahead of time, just to set the stage for anyone who's listening or doesn't know you for the first time. Lori's debut mystery, The Black Hour, won the 2015 Anthony Award for Best First Novel, which is a huge deal. Mm-hmm. And she was also a finalist for the 2015 Mary Higgins Clark Award. Her second novel, Little Pretty Things, won the Mary Higgins Clark Award and was a nominee for the Anthony Award, too. Little Pretty Things, that was the second novel, was also named a most arresting crime novel by Kirkus Reviews and one of the top 10 crime books by Booklist. Her third novel, The Day I Died, won the 2018 Anthony Award for Best Paperback Original. Are you sensing a pattern here? I am. And was a nominee for the Mary Higgins Clark Award, the Thriller Award, and the Barry Award. Lori lives in Chicago, where she is co-chair of the Mystery Authors Conference Murder and Mayhem in Chicago and the National Vice President of Sisters in Crime. Whew, we got through that. You
got through it.
You swept all those.
I had to live it.
Yeah, I know, but you have swept those awards. They should have your name emblazoned on them.
My new legal name is Mary Higgins Clark Award-winning author Lori Rader-Day.
Got it. That works. So let's talk a little bit about Under a Dark Sky. I remember you saying at one point that you like to challenge yourself with each book that you write. What was the challenge with Under a Dark Sky?
There were a couple of challenges to Under a Dark Sky. The first is that I chose to write about a location that I had never been to. I had never, most of my books I had written about locations that I lived in or I worked in. Mm-hmm. Under a Dark Sky, I sort of chose a location first and then had to build the story around that, and that was a bit of a challenge.
And what was the location?
The location is a dark sky park.
Which is?
It's a place where during the daytime you would go and maybe splash around in the water or go hiking, like a regular national or state park. But in the evening and at night you would stay and look at the stars. And it's a place where they have controlled all the man-made light so that you can see the dark sky as well as humanly possible.
Now, do they have tour guides, or do they have guides to tell you what you're looking at if you don't know the constellations?
It depends. I think some places probably have that kind of guide, but a lot of people just show up and they know their constellations. And but you can't use one of those apps on your phone because you can't use your phone. That's blue light, that's verboten. Okay. So you have to rely on your
telescope.
You can take a telescope, and many of them will have telescopes. They have programming where you can come and borrow telescopes if you don't have your own.
Okay.
And the one I borrowed, the Headlands International Dark Sky Park in Mackinac City, Michigan, has a telescope. It has a science level telescope that you can go and visit.
So did you know the constellations before you went when you finally went?
I used to know my constellations a lot better than I do now. When I was a kid, when I was in junior high, actually, our science class had a segment on constellations, and the goal was to memorize as many constellations and the shape of them and the stars as possible. So you had, the test was a blank sheet of paper with just dots, and you had to connect them and name things.
Oh, that's fun. that actually is, I like connect the dots.
But that's all gone. I don't remember very much of it anymore.
Okay. So that was one of the challenges, is writing about a location you hadn't been to when you started. And what was?
The other challenge in Under a Dark Sky was that I wanted to have an Agatha Christie level number of suspects. I wanted to have that sort of drawing room at the end where the 8 people and each one of them could have done it.
Yeah.
I didn't actually end up with a drawing room scene or anything like that, but I did have about 8 people all moving at the same time, all having their own stories, their own backstories, their own motives, and that sort of thing.
Okay, so tell me how you began the book, when you began writing it. What was the first thing that came to you?
The first thing that came to me was the location. I heard about dark sky parks generally. It must have been on NPR or maybe Facebook, about dark sky parks, and I thought, what a fantastic setting for a murder mystery. I wonder if anybody's done it. So I went online and Googled, trying to figure out if somebody had already beaten me to a story set at a International Dark Sky Park, International Dark Sky Association Dark Sky Park. And nobody had, and in fact I think I might be the first still.
Cool.
Barely though, because I just heard there was a novel set at a dark sky island, a dark sky reserve, and so there are different levels of dark sky spaces apparently, and so that was where the story started. But then I had to figure out who's going to wander into the space and why. So the next part of it was the character. Eden Wallace is a.
How did she come to you?
Well, she came to me as a figure. She was not fully formed. It was just I wanted to write about something that scared me, and the thing that scared me was becoming a widow. So I thought, well, that's something I want to explore. So I'm going to put a woman in this dark sky park who's a widow before her time. And I couldn't quite get a handle on her until one day I suddenly realized her name was Eden. And there was something about giving her that name that just sort of helped make her a real person. And that helped a lot. And then I had to figure out, why is she there? Why is she in a park when she's just lost her husband? And the story, if you'll let me, is that her husband, she finds in her husband's effects a reservation for a dark sky park at the guest house. And so even though she's developed a fear of the dark since her husband died, she decides to keep that reservation to sort of force herself back into living, which she has to do because the clock is ticking on losing her home because she can't afford to live there anymore by herself and that sort of thing. So she goes there, but she's imagining a romantic getaway that he's arranged for them, and whether he knew it or not, it is not a quiet getaway. It's a house with 4 bedrooms, and the other 3 are full of strangers. So the strangers sort of arrived, and then actually where I started actually being able to write, because this is all pre-writing. I don't know how you work, but just sort of like how do I start actually writing the story? And it takes a little while until I have about 3 or 4 points on the map. Until I was looking into one of the dark sky parks that I could that I wanted to know about was the Headlands International Dark Sky Park in Mackinac City, Michigan. That's the one I decided to use as my model. Their website, they had a great website. So I was looking on their website to learn more about them, and they had a guest house. But I couldn't tell how you rented it. How is it by the day? Is that price for one person, or do you get the whole house? I couldn't figure it out, and I thought, okay, I can use that. So that is when I started writing.
Okay.
That confusion, she arrives and there are people there who shouldn't be there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I really enjoyed it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Eden. She already considers herself an outsider, trying to cope with her status as a young widow, which you tell us about. Why did you put her in a situation where she would be even more of an outsider? Or was that subconscious?
I think writing about outsiders is, I mean, it's what we do. The stranger comes to town,
Right.
you know,
Right.
kind of thing. And it's not really something you do on purpose, but that's what's interesting. That's what's fun to explore.
Do you think that because she was with people she didn't know, and that would make her more objective, or was that a result of being with people she didn't know?
I think maybe that's a result. She sort of wanders into this, and she has so much going on. But then, because every single one of these other strangers has so much going on, she ends up being kind of an interesting witness to the things that are happening there. I mean, she thinks that what's happening there, one of the strangers, of course, is murdered before daybreak. This has nothing to do with her, but so she becomes a witness. But then she
is, I guess, insecure or not confident enough to trust her observations. I mean, I got the sense that she wanted to be a sleuth. She wanted to sort of be the sleuth.
None of my sleuths really want to be a sleuth.
Okay, all right, that's a good point, because you do that well. But she didn't really trust herself either, or trust, because she didn't trust anything about her life.
Yeah, things have gotten a little messy, and without going into too much spoiler information, things are not as they seem, have not been as they seem for her for a while. So she's on shaky ground when she arrives, and it just gets shakier from there.
Okay. I do want to read one sentence that I found very telling and beautiful. My specialty was surfaces, the slant of light on the outside of a thing instead of what went on underneath. Was she fooling herself? That's where I got the sense that maybe she was looking, but then as we get deeper into the story, she's not just looking at the surface of things. Is she doing that just because it's easier to deal with strangers that way?
I think, well, she's a photographer, I think we should mention. So when she's talking about light, she's talking about, she loves to take a picture.
Which is also makes her more,
texture.
and it also makes her more of an outsider.
Definitely, because she's not taking pictures of people.
Right.
She's not engaging with her her subject at all. She's just taking the shine off of something and really ignoring all else. And so I think she's sort of beating herself up in a way for not looking deeper into her own life.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense based on the story. By the way, if you're captured by the idea of this story, and I hope you are, do write in a question or two. Just want to remind you we're here, and we'd love to take your questions. In addition, you kind of put Eden through the mill, because not only is she trying to take an interest in the people and solve the murder, or at least understand the people who've committed the murder or who may have committed the murder, but she's also trying to work herself out of being a widow, or trying to find a will to live and some joy in life. So, I mean, you really burden this lady with a lot of stuff.
Isn't that what we like to do? We like to create these characters and then make their lives really hard.
Yeah. But she...
I love to write my characters into a corner, make things interesting for us, but hard for them.
Right.
And then see if I can get them out of it.
Were you, speaking of being in a corner, sort of, were you concerned that the focus on her role as a widow and Bix's death might be a little too heavy for readers, that they would not want to go with you there?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely worry about that sort of thing. I like stories that have darkness to them. I mean, not to be literal here, but yes, darkness to them. Social ills, usually will show up in some way in my stories.
Right.
And, sometimes people are in the mood for more cheerful things. But, I mean, I think the people who pick up our books, they want darkness. They don't pick up books like these hoping for a good time.
Right. Or a chirpy
sleuth
with a, I'm not. I
mean, they come for a good time, but they come for a good read, but they don't come for everything's going to be just fine the whole way through.
No, I think they come because, especially they want, I know why I read. I read female sleuths and female-driven books and darkness because I want to find out how someone struggled. Because, you know, I have struggles, you have struggles, we all have struggles. How did they deal with it?
Yeah.
You know?
I like it to be like real life. I
Yeah.
want it to be, I want it
Yeah.
to feel real,
Yeah.
even if it's a little sad for a while.
So you have a way of finding incredible twists in your stories. And there were several of them in this book. One of them came deep into the book. There's a major, it was one of the first major twists. You didn't know it was coming when you started writing it. How, how do those just total twists where you have to reset the table and the reader has to reset their expectations, how do they come to you?
You know, they don't always come to me. Sometimes I have to go after them with a baseball bat. I think you probably know all about this, but you know, there's the idea that the story magically lands on your shoulder and you write it out.
Right.
I don't
Channeling.
find that. I don't find that at all. I have to, you know, grab the notebook. If things aren't happening at the keyboard, I'll take the, you know, put that away and grab the notebook and go in after it, do the what if game. What could happen? What have I given myself to play with? And I've always had to do that. I've always had to go chasing down the story.
Do you realize at the end of writing it and after having found the twists and writing them that they were there all along and you just had to uncover them? A lot of times I feel that they were there. I just had to bring them into my conscious.
I've had things like that where when I look around and I find, you know, what have I given myself to work with and how can I use that? Sometimes I surprise myself by, you know, having put something that really had nothing to do with the story. It was just a throwaway item or situation or character or something. And then when that becomes useful later, I mean, it's not magic, but there's a feeling of sort of, there's a little bit of
synchronicity.
Yeah,
that happens. And when you find that something you had just thrown in there as a detail becomes relevant. Yeah,
Exactly.
I love that. I love that when that happens. And that must have happened a number of times in Under a Dark Sky.
For this one, I was actually struggling a little bit writing this story, and that's how I think so many twists and turns happened, because I was writing. It was the first time I had been contracted to write a book without knowing a single thing about it. So it was the trailing book on a 2-book deal, known as Untitled Number 4.
Right.
And all I had was the location, and then all I had was the location and the character, and then all I had, it was...
But that was enough.
But it needed to be done fast, which was...
well, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Beautifully written.
But it was definitely that was the challenge. That was the third challenge, but I didn't plan that one. It just happened.
Right. Well...
The shortened time that I had to write it.
How long did you have?
That would be a year.
Okay.
From probably the time I was able to focus on it to the time I turned it in.
Wow.
But the other books had been 2.5 years, and 10 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, funny about that. When you get to be a big author, your time.
It's all good news to have a contract, but then,
aside from Eden, who was your favorite character? Who was the character that you couldn't wait to write? And tell us about them.
In Under Dark Sky, I loved the character of Cooley, Officer Cooley. She's a police officer, and she's just goofy and fun, and I don't know where she came from exactly, but she gives a little bit of comedic relief in some ways, but she's just sweet. She's just, she won't swear.
Yeah.
You know, she won't, she loves her dog. She misses her dog. It's all about dogs with her. She's just really a nerd. But I loved her. I loved anytime she wandered into the scene, I knew I was going to have fun writing that scene.
Yeah. Do you find that there's always one or two characters in a story that you love, and that others are like, oh God, why did I do this character in the first place?
I don't know if I've ever had that the reaction of other people not loving that character that I loved. I think usually when I love a character, I think it's because that character is working and it seems like a real person. So usually people do like those people too. But yeah, there's usually at least one character that I get sort of a crush on. Like I just love, anytime I get to write that character. And I think it's usually the character that my character is becoming friends with. sort of a thing that I keep seeing happening.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
keep telling me, "Oh, you always have a hotel in your books." I learned I always have a hotel in my books, and I said, "No,
blushing.
that's not right. Wait, yes, that's right." And I thought, well, not the next. Oh, wait. Yeah, there's a hotel in that one already. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, a hotel is a great focal point. I mean,
It is.
how many wonderful mysteries have been written about hotels?
Well, I think it's that potential for story.
Right.
I don't know. There's just a hotel has so much story potential to it.
Yeah, it does. And strangers and malfeasance as well as people. Yeah.
And just life that's not normal. You know, when you're in your home, life is normal. But if you're in a hotel, things can happen, and you're up against people you didn't expect to meet.
So you don't write a series. You write standalones, which I think that's wonderful. But do you ever see yourself writing a series? Why did you decide to go just with standalones? And when you started out, did a publisher pressure you into writing a series?
No publisher has ever pressured me into any aspect of this. The standalone part began because when I was first writing my books, I was writing during my lunch hours at a very difficult day job that took all of my attention and all of my energy. And so it was hard to make myself go to the blank page. And so I finally finished that first draft of the first novel, and I sent it off to get agents, and then the whole process started. And then I turned to the next project, and the next project wasn't going to be that same group of characters in that same location and that same setup. I needed the shiny new idea to get me to the page to keep writing. And so thus began the second book. And that one actually, Little Pretty Things, was supposed to be a series starter. But again, when I finished that draft and it was time to start the new thing, I didn't immediately go, let's talk about Juliet some more. Let's see what she's up to. And I have ideas for her. I actually planned out, other ideas that I would.
Do you think you'll go back?
Maybe someday.
Maybe.
I would like to. At least maybe a short story or two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. I just got an idea for an LA short story to bridge the gap between the time if I ever come back and write another LA book. I don't know if I will. So let's hear your origin story about why you started, or how you knew you were going to become a writer. And
I was a writer from a young age, about 6 or 7. I was a big reader, huge reader. And I loved Beverly Cleary. She was my favorite.
Sure.
And if she isn't your favorite, I'm sorry for you. I loved her at Ramona Stories.
Yeah.
And so one day I realized, this Beverly Cleary person, this name on the front of this Ramona book that I love so much, who is that? What is she doing there? She's the person who writes the Ramona stories. So someone can write Ramona stories. I'm someone, maybe I'll write a Ramona story. So my first creative act was one of theft. I think they call it fan fiction now. But I tried to write my very own Ramona story, and I don't think I got very far. But I did try. And then I was able to show it to a friend of mine, and so my first audience. Apparently,
first reader.
Yeah. It's intoxicating. But I wrote all through, childhood, high school, college. When I was a young adult and I moved to Chicago, I accidentally stopped writing for about 5 years. That was not what I meant to do, but life was so different, and I was getting married and had a new job and had a new city, and all these things were happening. It just kept me away from writing. And then one day in 2006, my friend from high school, who I'd beaten at a writing competition way back when, published a book.
Oh.
And I was simultaneously so happy for him and so envious that I realized, but he had done the work.
Yeah.
He went to school and he studied and he wrote and he worked in a bookshop and he centered his life around reading and writing, and I had not done that. So I decided it was time to get serious. So I went back to school here in Chicago at Roosevelt University. They have a Master of Fine Arts program in creative writing.
Wow. I didn't know you'd done that.
I did, yeah. It was really fun. It was about 2.5, 3 years.
Wow.
And it was just, time and deadlines and an audience. And those 3 things, that's all I needed.
Where do you think you made your biggest growth in craft? Was it at during the program? The master's
Probably
program?
probably in my MFA program, and not necessarily. These programs aren't necessarily like you come and you learn to write. It's not really about that so much as you learn how to build a writing life. And so you have deadlines, so you have to create. Even when no one's holding your hand and making you create, you have to do it on your own. Even so, and then you have people giving you feedback, and you give them feedback. And in giving them feedback, you realize the things that you don't like, and you do that in your own work. Okay, I'm going to stop that. So you get better more quickly.
Well, what about things like point of view and dialogue tags and just the little things that we pick up along the way?
I don't think point of view is a little thing, but
No,
I could go on at length if we needed to about point of view. But I think you get a lot of that from reading a lot, maybe directed reading. Someone gives you some books to read that would help you specifically with the things that you're trying to learn.
I never learned it until I was in a writer's group and someone said, "You're breaking point of view," and I'm like, "Huh? What do you mean?"
Yeah, you think of point of view as the I said, she said, he said, that kind of thing, but it's so much more than that. But I think it's probably something you have to keep learning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think your strength is as a writer? What is the thing that you're most proud of in your writing?
What am I most proud of in the actual craft of writing?
Yeah. What do you do well? Plotting?
Not plotting. Ugh. Ugh.
Lyrical writing? I don't know. Dialogue?
I think lyrical writing, but not necessarily in the sense of, it's beautiful poetic language. I think that I'm a pretty good storyteller. And so if I start to tell you a story, especially writing it down, not here, but you'll want to see where it goes. That the character, you'll want to see what happens with that character. But sometimes that makes revision hard because it's so beautifully structured, the sentences and the paragraph. And sometimes you just have to go in there with a shovel and dig them out. Like, I don't need these darlings here.
Yeah.
But it can be tough to untangle because
Yeah, no, I know that one. And on the other side, what do you think you'd like to do better? What do you think?
I always think I could be better at plotting. I think it is the unnatural part of storytelling to me is I don't always know where I'm going, right? So I have to sort of write it to know where I'm going, and then I go back and revise. So it's...
But I'm kind of the same way.
Are you?
Yeah. I mean, I think I know where I'm going. Yeah. And then I get surprised by my characters. I mean, when I wrote A Bitter Veil, I had no idea who did it, who murdered the person in the beginning of the book. And I was at the end of the book. It was time to reveal them, and I still didn't know who did it. So,
well, Under a Dark Sky, that Agatha Christie level of suspects.
Oh, sure.
I mean, that was a gift to myself and also a curse because I thought, well, I don't know. I don't know, Libby. I don't know. I've got 8 of them, 9 of them, and I don't know. So I just kept writing,
and the
bodies kept dropping, and then
and the killer revealed themselves,
exactly.
Which we're not going to tell you because we want you to read the book. Interesting stuff. At the end of the book, you developed a playlist. And I never even thought of, I cannot listen. I get so distracted with everything that I can't listen to. But you do. Tell me how you go ahead and go about creating a playlist of music.
Well, I love music. I love to listen to music, in my car, in my kitchen, anywhere. But when I'm writing, I listen to music. Not every time. Sometimes I need the silence. Sometimes I need the cafe noise.
Right.
But often having a pair of headphones on, noise-canceling headphones, a gift to myself that keeps giving, and some music that I love. It helps me get focused when I'm having trouble focusing. And then I start a playlist every time I start a new project and start adding songs that I think thematically go with what I'm writing, or just have the right tone that I actually sort of hypnotize myself. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I stop actually hearing the music. I wrote my master's thesis at one point to one album, just playing over
What was
and
the album?
It was OK Computer by Radiohead.
Oh, wow.
It's not exactly,
That's
yes, it's not.
That would send me, I would be bonkers if I tried that.
There was something about it, the music, that just sort of lulled me into, I'm thinking about my project, I'm not thinking about the music anymore. I've stopped hearing the music.
That's amazing.
It's basically hypnosis.
Well, yeah, but you made it work for you.
Yeah, and then the playlists for the books, they change over time. When a song isn't working, I'll drop it out. Or if I find the perfect song, maybe sometimes that's just what I listen to over and over and over again.
You're good. I can't focus anymore. So you have become very active in the mystery community with, you're the incoming national president of Sisters in Crime.
I've got a few months left.
Yeah, you got MWA, you've been, and everything. Why?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't get that question very often. I did my MFA program, and I didn't realize I was a mystery writer at the time. I just was writing. Whatever came out, that's what I was writing. And I wrote a story that had a crime in it. Terry Faraday. Do you know Terry Faraday?
Yes, I would love this story. Tell us.
So I got accepted into this little weekend fellowship with Midwest Writers Workshop. It was actually in northern Indiana. It wasn't in Muncie. But when I arrived, there were 3 groups: fiction, nonfiction, and mystery. And they had put me in the mystery group. But this was just a story I had started. It was a short story that had gotten long that I just learned was maybe a novel, but I didn't know how to write a novel. And then I arrive and they say, oh, by the way, it's also a mystery novel. And I didn't think I was in the right place. I was pretty sure they'd put me in the wrong group, and I was a little upset about it. And so I said to Mr. Terry Faraday, Terrence Faraday, fantastic Indiana mystery writer, I think I might be in the wrong group. And he was like, yeah, there's a crime in your first 10 pages, kid.
Yeah.
Are you going to solve it? Because if you solve it,
you're a mystery
might
writer.
Be a mystery writer. And I hadn't thought of it. I hadn't read mysteries in a while, even though I used to love them. And it was a little bit of a surprise to me. But once he let me know, I realized he's right.
Yeah.
I absolutely knew what the story had to do, and I knew how to fix it and make it better.
It's amazing. I love writing mysteries because it does focus. It focuses you. I'm not, or you're not, or hopefully we're not trying to write the great American novel. We're just trying to write a really good story.
Trying to write a great American novel.
Well, you don't know that.
But it gives you a shape to the story.
Exactly.
You know that you have to solve that crime, that is the shape of the
Right.
story. And then once I had heard that, I thought, well, now I know. I think I know what that looks like. So
did you go out? Did you go out and read a lot of different mystery authors?
I did.
So who do you read?
Who do I read now? I love Tana French, Katrina McPherson, Claire O'Donoghue, Lynn Raimondo. Doing a lot of Chicago authors here. Susie Calkins, Charles Todd, Lou Burney, Laura Lippman, Megan Albert. I can go on all day.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Great.
I love to read. But we probably have less time to read now than we've ever had in our entire lives,
and
right?
it bums me out because I can't. I've got books. Well, you probably do too. All right. Unfortunately, I think we're coming to the end of our time with Lori today. Under a Dark Sky is published by William Morrow. It's $15.99. Get your hands on one and just order it from us. Just write in. Just click on the author's voice.net website and you'll get right to it. Coming up on Author's Voice, just want to tell you a little bit about what's happening. House Divided is going to be author Timothy B. Smith speaking to host Bjorn Skaptson about his latest history books, The Real Horse Soldiers and The Decision Was Always My Own. That's on December 6th at 3:30. A House Divided returns with award-winning historian Sean Willents December 13th at 3:30 to talk about No Property in Man, and Lady Bird and Friends author Adam Schmidt joins Betsy Berg to discuss Speechless. That's December 14th at 5:30 p.m. And ask questions, order a signed copy at authorsvoice.net. And if you're watching this on YouTube after the broadcast, you can still order signed books. Don't forget. Thank you all for being with us today, and we hope to see you again on Solve next month.